name is Ayers, and I'm a potter who lives in Waterbury, Vermont. My work is primarily functional pottery. I work in a studio that is in my great-great-grandfather's carriage barn, where he made carriages and sleighs and wheels at the turn of the century. Making art and teaching art is like a puzzle to be unlocked. Why is it good? What makes it look good? What makes it feel right? What makes the viewer understand what's happening? What gives them pleasure in terms of how it works well? Working in ceramics appealed to my kind of anti-establishment 19-year-old self. Being a potter in the 21st century seemed, you know, kind of romantic and, you know, different. At that age, there's a lot of pressure to choose what you want to do, and I had an epiphany. It was the first time that I had a real epiphany that I just needed to choose what I wanted to do right then, and not worry about the future so much, but just worry about the near future, not way down the road and how it was all going to work out, but just to do the thing that I was finding passion in. And so I did. I never stopped ever since I first started in 1996. I've always made ceramics ever since then. Being an artist is not the straightest path. There's simpler, more profitable paths in life than being an artist. But in terms of challenges with my art, I haven't had very many. I've in fact felt like in recent years I've had great luck with my work. I've had great acceptance for my work. The major challenge that I've gone through is the flooding from Hurricane Irene that we went through in 2011. That was a major event in our life, a very traumatic and major event in our lives. We got flooded out on Sunday night. The floodwaters came up in about an hour and a half or something like that. And the water was up to the bottom step. It was pretty much up level with the floor. My studio's in the basement. My pottery studio is in the basement. And I basically lost everything. We waded out through chest deep water. My wife had the baby on her shoulders, 8-month baby. And myself and the neighbor had my grandfather by the armpits, 94-year-old grandfather. We had to lock our dogs on the second floor and just hope for the best. The line that you see going across there, that's how high the water was. I was down here trying to save pottery and pulling stuff out, and water is just shooting out here. Things were starting to float by me, and I was tripping over things, and I said, this is enough. It's not like nothing else I've ever experienced. For us, the key to recovering from that event was community. Community that is close around us, our immediate friends and family. The larger art community that I'm a part of in Vermont really embraced me. And then even larger than that, even a bigger circle than that, the community of my life here growing up, where my high school gym teacher was here helping, and people that had known me when I was a kid but hadn't really seen me since I was a kid asked what they could do or helped us out in some way. So there's all these like concentric rings of community around us, from the close-knit to the far-flung, that really rallied around us and helped us, and that was really inspiring. I received grants from Frog Hollow and Burlington City Arts, and all of these art organizations that I was a part of really helped me rebuild. So by the time spring rolled around 2012, I was back in the studio and working again, and trying to pick up where I had left off. The place where we are now is more like the culminating moment for the studio, for the next phase of my family and this property. The way that we are bringing people onto the property is by starting to hold events. And the reason that we're doing that is because we have this beautiful property, this 1892 house and barn, and my family history is such a great story, and this property is so unique. The reason my family has worked so hard to keep it is because it's too special a property to sell, too special a property to break up. And so, along with my whole family, we've really worked hard to organize things in a way that we can keep the property and bring out these beautiful aspects of it to share with people.
It feels so natural to me. I'm like, feels like exactly what's supposed to be happening, you know?
What they're doing here with the studio and the guest house and the store, and how they involve their family and so many families, it all really makes sense. It's very full circle.
We survived the flood here, and it was incredible to see the amount of support and just outpouring of love, and I don't even know how to explain it.
I don't know the head count of how many people came out and helped shovel out the basement and remove the rotted wood and the siding from the home, but I was a part of that effort and got to witness this amazing outpouring of love for these two people and their home and this family compound. And it chokes me up because they give so much back.
I think it's quintessential Vermont to have that community around you, to have kind of a developed and multifaceted community of family, friends, and neighbors. And I think that what we're doing here speaks of that. It's not just me in a basement making pottery and sending it out to the world. Now I'm in this open space. Whether we're having an event or not, my doors are open. I'm inviting people to come here and see what's happening. And it's about how what we're doing now relates to the history of what happened here, how we took it over, and why. And when people come into the store, if they stay long enough that they're actually interested, I end up telling little pieces of the story.
Jennifer Ranz. I live here at the Greensboro barn, which is my home and also the place that I work. I'm an artist. I make pottery, porcelain jewelry, and I do watercolor paintings. And I pretty much integrate all of the things that I do into my creative work. I have beautiful gardens that surround my barn, and I think my largest creative project is my barn, because I've been renovating it for 28 years now, and it's been an ongoing project to create a home and a gallery and my studio and a beautiful surrounding where I love to work. I raised my 3 kids here. I planted fruit trees. I have berry bushes and a grapevine and a gorgeous garden that produces amazing food for me. And every time I walk around my barn, it is the place that I feel deeply rooted, and it inspires me to keep creating things of beauty. When people come here and see my place, they can't believe how fortunate I am, and they'll even say, wow, you're living the dream, and I know I'm living a dream. I'm the 5th generation of my family to summer in Greensboro, and it was so special that I ended up living here year-round. But when I think back on my ancestors, they used to come here from Randolph, White River Junction in Vermont, and they camped on the lake, and they had collected ice from the lake in the winter and put in sawdust, and they spent the summers fishing and just being on the shores of Caspian Lake. Growing up, I came here every summer and I loved it. I always thought I was a Vermonter from Greensboro. I'm inspired daily by my surroundings. I feel my life is filled with everything that I need to create my art. I enjoy showing my artwork in my gallery in my barn, and I have a variety of pieces of ceramics that are functional and decorative, and I also have a large collection of jewelry that I make out of porcelain. These are porcelain pieces that I've made out of clay, porcelain, and I glaze them. These have 2 different firings of glazes with a metallic luster on them. And it's a finished piece, so I can now make it into an earring. When I work with my clay, it's usually inside and in my studio, and the cold weather brings me in and I'm creating more of my work. Every time I pick up a ball of clay, I get to form it into whatever I can imagine. And making things out of clay when I'm in my studio is a real joy. I love taking that ball of clay and turning it into something. I usually know what I'm gonna make, but sometimes the clay determines a little bit of what it wants to become, which is a relationship that I've really been enjoying. When you start a pot, there's this spiral that happens with the centrifugal force of the wheel and compacting the clay like this. And it's just so beautiful. And in nature, the spiral means rebirth, new beginnings. It's got a beautiful meaning, and it's seen all over the world. So it's a real joy every time I'm on the wheel making a pot to see the spiral. feel like everything I'm doing is part of a whole, and it's being integrated with each other. I found an abandoned old barn in town that I actually used to hay here as a kid, and I asked the owners what they were doing with it, and they said nothing, and I said, would you sell it to me? And they said, sure. So I ended up with an historic 1880s abandoned barn and really had no idea what I was getting myself into. But I've taken this barn and completely renovated it. The wing of it that was the chicken coop and the milk house is now my home. A part of the huge barn that was full of hay and grain is now my gallery. And there's a large space that we use now for events. And it's so satisfying to see a beat up, abandoned old barn be transformed into a beautiful, iconic landmark. My barn is huge, and it's just a magnificent structure, and it has a space that has been transformed from hay bins into a gathering space. It can hold over 150 people, and my daughter put up some Christmas lights, so when it's lit up at night, it's just like a glowing cathedral. People love to gather there, and we've had many events of all sorts where people are enjoying being in this historic structure. I love being outside all year long. I especially love it when spring comes and I can get into my garden. I actually have a greenhouse, so I can get in there sooner because the ground thaws sooner, and to be able to be poking in the dirt and watching things grow is just magical. I enjoy putting combinations of different things together when I am cooking. I love the colors, I love the flavors. I have so much healthy, beautiful food. It's something that I can share. I love sharing times with my friends. We always get together for good food, and it's wonderful to be able to supply vegetables. When we get together, it's fun to use my creations of pottery and spread my table with tomatoes and zucchinis. We have wonderful artisan cheese nearby, and it feels good to know that I'm sharing with them something that I've created.
It's true. It is true.
Jennifer.
As the seasons change, like now going from fall harvesting my garden to being more indoors, that's the time when I create most of my art. I mean, I feel like my creative work in the garden is one thing, but then when I work with my clay, it's usually inside and in my studio, and the cold weather brings me in and I'm creating more of my work. I'm holding one of my hand-built bowls that is textured with a piece of crocheted lace, and it is textured on both sides. So this is a slab that I have cut out into an oval, and I am going to put a texture on it using this piece of crocheted lace. So I lay it down, use a rolling pin, press it in, and I have to go around the edges. And when I lift off the textile, it has left an impression on the piece of wet clay. I don't always know what the textile is going to look like until I press it into the clay. And many times I'm surprised. So I've been able to come up with a technique where I can put patterns and textures on both sides of the piece and all appendages if I want. I am making all kinds of forms and recognizing I can make almost any shape with this clay that has a texture on it. So I feel like I've really taken this technique to a level where there's still a lot of possibilities. I'm just finding it very inspiring and fun, and the results are exciting for me, and I just keep wanting to make more. Every time I work on clay, it's new and different. I'm inspired daily to get up. I'm excited to do what I do. There's variety in my life and no end to my projects.
Vermont PBS, partnering with local filmmakers to bring you stories made here. For more, visit vermontpbs.org.